It's easy just to, as a franchisor, to place blame on franchisees. Like, it's easy to do that because you can see what franchisees are doing wrong. And you're like, you're not even doing the basics. So why are you complaining about all these other things? So you get to the point where there's mutual respect, that you have the same goal in mind and you work together to get there. And so I think that's important for franchisees and franchisors to understand.
What is the role of a franchisor in the sense of, like, here's the analogy that kind of I use, and I'm curious of what your perspective on this, because obviously you have a lot of people that buy into a franchise that have never owned a business before, right? And so although they're getting the system, they may not be equipped or kind of have the capacity or the skill sets to properly execute on it. So the analogy I use is, okay, if a franchise is you going and buying a piece of furniture for IKEA that has a box, it has the pieces and the instructions. Well, you may read the instructions and go, I don't understand it. I still don't understand how to do it, or I'm trying and it's not working, or it says you need these tools, um, that you have to have. You need to have a drill. The drill didn't come with it. What drill do I buy? There's a lot of different drills. Now I'm overwhelmed. I go to buy a drill. I'm confused. How do I use the drill? That's kind of the analogy that I use. So what do you think is the difference in terms of the roles of what a franchisor then has to do, and what does a franchisee have to do to make sure that they become successful from that perspective?
So I think the franchisor needs to have that system built that is for that person. They need to have that person in mind as they're creating the systems, the processes, the training, the SOPs, the grand opening plans. They need, and this is what we talk to our brands about. Like, don't build it for the top third. You build it for that bottom third and the middle third. So it's step by step. It's paint by numbers. You have to have every little detail in there for the average or below average franchisee. Otherwise, I don't think you're doing your job as a franchisor. And so that kind of goes back to what I was saying. Like, franchisors spend their time on the bottom 2/3 of the franchisee. That's where they're spending most of their time to lift them to get better, to get more profitable, to have year over year increase in top line revenue. And whenever I say top line revenue, that should translate to bottom line profitability as well. So I think where franchisors miss it is they're just trying their KPIs, their benchmarks. As we're doing well as a franchisor, we're selling more territories, we're bringing on more franchisees, we are opening up more locations. Like, that is, if that's the benchmark, that is an indicator of success. But real success is, it would be franchisees that are making money, and they're making more money year over year. And the franchisor, internal conversations that we like to have with our franchisors is, how are we helping our franchisees this year have a better grand opening than they did last year? How does this grand opening become better than the one that was last week? Like, what did we learn from that? What did we learn from training, and how can we improve training? What are we going to do next year to have year over year increase in top line revenue? Again, not to benefit the franchisor necessarily, but to help franchisees make more money. The more money franchisees make, like, logically, they should want to open up more locations. Now, that doesn't always happen, because sometimes they're happy with a lower amount of net profit than because it's making more than they were in their corporate job. So all of a sudden they're happy making $200,000 or $300,000 or $400,000, whatever that number is. They're happy with that, and they're not motivated to make $1 million or $2 million, or like get to like some of these big food guys that are flying around in their private jets to the different conferences. But that is what franchisees should be focused on. And they should be focused on making hires that are going to help all of those numbers move. But making hires in operations, making hires in marketing. If their marketing vendor's not great, then get a new marketing vendor, and holding their vendors accountable. So it's easy just to, as a franchisor, to place blame on franchisees. Like, it's easy to do that because you can see what franchisees are doing wrong. And you're like, you're not even doing the basics. So why are you complaining about all these other things? It's easy as a franchisee to look at the franchisor. They're like, oh, I only got 2 marketing vendors or 3 marketing vendors that are approved. Why don't I have 10 or 20? Like, there's never going to be enough for a franchisee. And the franchisor kind of thinks the franchisees are never going to be happy. And that's why I love, kind of understanding the phases that franchisees go through. Like, franchise founders should understand these phases that franchisees go through, and franchisees should understand the phases that they're going to go through. From when you first buy, you're really happy. Like, everything is, rainbows and unicorns. And then you go through this eventual phase where everything's falling apart and it's all the franchisor's fault. And then eventually you get to the phase where, okay, we're working together. I'm not going to get everything I want from the franchisor. And you don't want them to approve everything that a franchisee wants. Otherwise, they're just going to be chasing shiny objects that franchisees think they need. Like, you don't want that from a franchisor, even if you want them to implement your ideas, but you don't want them to implement every other idea. But every franchisee feels that way. So you get to the point where there's mutual respect, that you have the same goal in mind, and you work together to get there. And so I think that's important for franchisees and franchisors to understand.
If you enjoyed this short clip from the podcast, you can check out another short clip right here. Or if you want to watch the full episode of this podcast, you can watch that here. And remember, knowledge is not power. It's applied knowledge that's power. Take care. Have a great rest of your day.